Hello friends and welcome to Smart Coach. Today we will be looking at the unification of Germany. Now the unification of Germany is a long process. While talking about the unification and emergence of Germany as a nation, we'll have to take care of various aspects. Now first at this task, what we'll have to do is to define the causes behind the unification of Germany. And also, before we even proceed into doing that, what we will have to do is that we will have to get a background of what Germany really was at the time of its unification. Well, as we know, in the medieval ages, the Germany was subsumed into the Holy Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire itself was made up of a number of principalities which were united together in a federation, but at the same time, they were quite independent in their functioning. So we have to understand that as a background, fragmentation of Germany, fragmented nature of Germany was part of its medieval structure, the structure of Germany during the medieval period. All right, so fragmented structure was part of its medieval history itself under the Holy Roman Empire, where there were a number of principalities, number of monarchies which were all united together as a confederation, but at the same time they operated with great amount of independence. All right, and this was the feudal structure which was prevalent in Germany, and by the time we arrive at modernity, this continues to remain so. However, certain new elements have been added in the modern times, and these elements provide the impetus for the unification of Germany. Now if we are talking about these elements, what we have to understand is that these elements constitute the causes for the unification of Germany. Now, as we discuss the causes for the unification of Germany, number one out here will be the French Revolution itself and the consequent shift in the way people identified themselves, and a consequent shift in the way people started to look at nations and nationalities. Now the French Revolution introduced certain radical ideas, all right, radical ideas such as, principal among which is the social contract idea. And from the social contract idea, which of course is discussed during discussing of the French Revolution, from the social contract idea itself, we come to the conclusion that people should have the right to democratically choose their leaders. People should have the right for democratic self-determination. All right? Democratic self-determination. Now, nationalism itself as a phenomena would not exist without the idea of democratic self-determination, to determine oneself as a nation. All right, without the prevalence of this idea that people should be empowered to determine themselves as a nation, without the prevalence of the idea of a social contract that people are not bound by their rulers but instead the people are free to choose their rulers, without such ideas nationalism itself won't be possible. And the French Revolution goes on a long way in order to inculcate these ideas within the German psyche. All right, and remember, Germany, which is at this point of time a fragmented territory constituting of a confederation, all right, it is influenced by these ideals, and these ideals seep into Germany through the Napoleonic Wars. All right, now in this scheme itself, therefore, the second cause for the unification of Germany would be the Napoleonic Wars and the occupation of Germany by Napoleon, all right, or the occupation of Germany by the French. So the occupation of Germany by Napoleon and the French, all right, it has two kinds of relative aspects to it. Number one in here is that with the occupation of Germany, what happens is that ideas of revolution and in general revolutionary ideas, they seep into Germany, number one. And number two, it also instills within Germany a nationalistic spirit. Now, because of the occupation of Germany by the French, the Germans begin to unite themselves. The Germans start to see the French as occupiers and start to define themselves against the French. Now, if you are trying to constitute a nation, you have to define yourselves against the image of somebody else, and in this case, that image is provided by France. So, not only does France provide them with the revolutionary ideals of a social contract, with the revolutionary ideals of democratic self-determination, but it also instills them with the argument that they constitute a nation, they constitute a group of people who should be independent of some other group. In this case, it is the French. So the French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, they play a very important role in the coming up of Germany as a nation. Now, third in this list will be again another political aspect which we will have to look into, and that is the emergence of Prussia as a military and political power. Now, it was also on the eve of the German unification, that is in the 19th and the 18th century. What we see is that Prussia finally emerges as a supreme player in the military and political power games. Alright, Prussia is fast militarizing itself, and politically also it has become more and more influential. And it becomes clear by the time Germany is about to be united as a nation, it becomes clear that the lead itself will be taken by the Prussian masses. Alright, Prussia will become the leader in the unification of Germany. Apart from that fact, another advantage for Prussia is that the homogeneity of the population of Prussia. All right, homogeneity of population of Prussia. By this, what I am trying to explain is that within the boundaries of Prussia, the German state of Prussia, within the boundaries, the population was quite homogeneous. They were made up of the German people and people speaking German, that is, alright. And because of this, it is very easy within Prussia to build up a Germanic identity and to send out, radiate out this Germanic identity from within Prussia to outside Prussia in order to combine all of the German states into one single state, alright. So what we see during German unification is that Prussia takes the lead in this particular aspect, and therefore the emergence of Prussia as a military and political power, and also as the center point of the creation of German identity itself. Now remember this argument that Prussia emerges not only as a military and a political power, but it also emerges as the center of German identity itself. All right. Now this is a very important argument. Okay, so German identity itself is defined by the population of Prussia, and this identity is then radiated outside Prussia in order to forge the entire principalities, all of the states of Germany into one nation. All right, and this is why Prussia is also important in this scheme. Now, talking about identity, we will also have to talk about the formation of the German identity. All right, which gives us the fourth and final point in our discussion. All right, formation of a German identity. Now remember that while talking even about the ideas of the revolution, while talking about the French occupation, and even while talking about the emergence of Prussia, we kept on asserting upon the definition of the national identity against somebody's opposition. In order to do this, all right, in order to define oneself as a nation, first the people of a nation will have to identify themselves as a nation, and this is a very complex phenomena upon which many philosophers and even many social scientists have given their opinions. But what we know, or what is relevant for us, is to take language as a criteria and also culture as a criteria. All right, and in the case of Germany, race also. All right, race also as a criteria. Now, all of these categories, language, culture and race, started to become defined in the 18th and the 19th century. All right, German race, German culture and what constitutes German language, all of these started to be defined in the 18th and the 19th century. So we see people belonging to literature emerging and taking up center stage, such as the German poet and the German scholar and the German writer Goethe, right? He is very important in building up the German identity, because it is through the literature produced by Goethe we see that the German language itself gets systematized, all right? The Germanic language is systematized, all right? And through the systematization of the Germanic language, what we see is that it now starts to command respect, the same kind of respect which English and French and above all which Latin used to command in the ancient world, all right? The same kind of respect is now being accorded to German. Now this again builds up the patriotic, and this again builds up the cultural identity of Germany as a people, as a nation within a well-defined boundary, all right? So what we see is that all of these four causes are quite important in the study of nationalism within Germany. And now in the second stage of our video, we will also have to discuss, beyond the causes, we'll have to discuss the sequence of events, how Germany comes to become a nation. But however, since this is going to be a long video, we will try to separate this video into two parts, all right? So we have discussed the causes in the first part. Of course, we will discuss the sequence of events in the second part of this video. So with that, I hope that you will keep on watching our videos, and please follow the second part of this video to get a proper understanding of German unification.